Hello, my Scorpio friends. Dr. Shiny here. This is a tarot reading for you for the month of February 2017. Thank you for coming back if you were here last time, and if not, welcome. It's wonderful to have you. Please check out my introductory videos on sort of my personal views on the tarot cards and like what you can hope to accomplish out of or what you can hope to get from these readings, that kind of thing. But I'm going to get right into your reading today. And your current situation is the Six of Swords. And the Six of Swords represents a sort of difficult or perhaps painful transition. You're in a little bit of discomfort, and it may be sadness or something like that, but it's some sort of discomfort or causing you sadness or pain, that type of thing. It's always a good, well, I say it's always, it's usually a very good thing, this card. The transition may seem like a necessary thing, something that you just got to get through, but you're not necessarily enjoying it. What's crossing you is the Nine of Swords. Okay, so now the Nine of Swords is all about perspective. It's about the fact that there is, in any situation that you're in, there is inherently both negatives and positives. And sometimes we like to think that there are more negatives in a situation or more positives or whatever. But if you really, really take time to analyze things, you find that on the whole, things are pretty balanced in the world, you know. And of course, the more aware you are, the more mindful you are, the more you see that balance. Or at least this doesn't become quite as big of a challenge for you. So this suggests that you're upset because you're not really focusing on the best part of the situation. You're focusing maybe on the negative. And you can see how the figure here, there are little scary bat-looking things hanging on that tree right next to him. But up above him, there's some nice little hearts there, you know. Now, in this card, the swords are sort of put there on the bottom of the tree where the character feels like he is trapped by them or something like that. But he also has his own sword, and he could easily just sort of like knock them out of the way or anything like that. That's the way I like to think of it. So in order for you to, well, in your future, what we have is the Five of Coins, which suggests a period of like loss or poverty, or not necessarily a period, but a feeling of loss or poverty, or that you're alone, that nobody has your back, that sort of thing. But it's also dealing with perspective. All right, so essentially, what this is saying is that if you don't get over what's crossing you here, you're gonna constantly feel like this. You're gonna constantly feel impoverished and alone. But even in this card, there is help all around. There are candles reaching out from the darkness to help. But you notice she looks a little afraid of them, like she doesn't trust them or something like that. So sometimes you have to, you got to learn to accept a little bit of help or something like that. But I don't think that's as necessary in this reading for you to pay attention to. I think that the main focus here is perspective. Like, keep in perspective that what you're going through is overall going to be a positive for you in the long run anyway. In your past, or what got you here, was the sun. So sun represents enlightened thought and clarity, simplicity, those types of things. So what got you here was maybe a very solid idea or a very solid plan for the future or something like that. Well, what we see in your subconscious or your lower thoughts, you have the Three of Coins, which is, this is sort of like after you first close on a house, or after you first drafted up the plans to a new building or something like that. So the actual work has not been completed yet, but the planning has been put into place, and you've come up with an idea, and you've possibly started putting that into action. But there's still some things that need to be done, and it's not like you're going to be able to completely shrug all the responsibility for this. There's going to be some work, and it may be mental work or emotional work. In fact, I feel that it will be. So there's that. your higher thoughts, your crowning thoughts, is the Queen of Cups, and the Queen of Cups is the ruler of the domain of emotions. She uh, perfectly feels all of her emotions and allows them to run through her and to not hang on or to block or anything like that. She's very fluid. It is not clear to me whether this is describing somebody in your environment or somebody that's on your mind, or whether you believe or you think that these characteristics are yours. Now, here's the thing. When I say you think they're yours, they could be yours, but that's not what the reading is saying. The reading is saying that you think that these are your characteristics, because that's what's in your crowning thoughts. That's what your mind is focused on, you know. So there's that. Keep in mind that just because you think you are a certain way doesn't mean that that's exactly what you are. So there may be emotions that you don't even know about, that you didn't even think you were capable about, because most of us go our entire lives sort of only mildly experiencing emotions, just sort of little fake excuses for emotions. We don't really let anything hit us 100% either way, like sad or happy. And occasionally a person will, I heard Louis C.K., there was a video online of him talking about this, about how every now and then you sort of feel this real sadness, this loneliness, this knowledge that you're alone, this empty void, that it's all for nothing or whatever. And every now and then that feeling sort of creeps in on some people, right? And the natural tendency is to resist it or distract yourself or pick up the phone and text message or something like that, so you never really have to deal with that feeling. But if you just sort of let it hit you, right? If you let it come over you and rush past you and then release it, don't hang on to it, just release it. What follows it is a period of incredible ecstasy, incredible joy and peace and all those things. Because what you're doing is you're allowing your brain to feel the sadness to its full extent. And then when you do that, first of all, you've never really quite felt that sad. And when you feel that sad, then all of a sudden you recognize, but hold on, I'm still alive. And not only am I alive, I feel this incredible weight lifted off of me. I felt like I couldn't do that, right? And then when you actually do it, you just sort of you feel an incredible peace. It's almost like your body, and this is what Louis C.K. says, it's almost like your body has antibodies for sadness. And what they do is they sort of create this rebound effect of happiness and joy and gratitude and that sort of thing. And it can push people toward God a lot of times, because in these moments you have this tremendous sense of gratitude that it's so it's so rare or unusual, or I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. It's so unlikely that you're even alive, that you're here and experiencing what you're experiencing, that you automatically feel like thanks to like everything. And a lot of people search for a singular entity to send that feeling toward, and that's where they find God, or that's where they find a use or a need for God. Because some people don't intrinsically feel that. Some people feel as though their faculties serve them just fine, and they haven't had a struggle or anything in life that they felt like they needed to search for something else. And that's because those people weren't meant to search for it yet, or maybe at all. We all have our roles. We all have our parts to play. And it's not always up to us to make sure everybody understands all the roles that are available. Sometimes it's important just to pick one and go with it. What's in your advice? The cards are telling you, you have the Ace of Wands here. The Ace of Wands is normally like a creative spark or inspiration or something like that. Now, this is your advice for the situation, so obviously it's not telling you to have a creative spark. That's somewhat involuntary and the result of inspiration in the world around you. But what it's telling you is to look at this situation, this sort of painful transition that you're going through, as a creative opportunity. There is something if something comes crashing down, then all of a sudden you don't have the responsibility for that, and you have this time freed up that you can put towards something else that maybe has been in the back of your mind for a long time. But if you get down in the dumps because you're not feeling this transition, then you're probably just going to want to sit around and mope, maybe smoke weed or drink or whatever you do. You're not going to actually you're not going to put energy toward the things that you wanted to do, but you didn't have time to, even though now you have time, because you're feeling lousy about it. So keep in perspective that loss is gain, and there is something here for you to utilize for a brighter future. You know what I mean? Okay, now, that said, this is how you should see the situation. This is not calling you to action necessarily. Now, action may be something really good for you as a sort of a therapeutic measure at the time. So in other words, the overall message of your reading here is not to go you've done okay, so let's go back to the Three of Coins for a second. There is architecture associated with the meaning of this card. In fact, the original artwork has the people designing a cathedral, and there are architects there. So what this is suggesting is that your duty has been completed. It was your job to do the planning, and now it's up to other people to do the execution, okay? And it's your job to sort of to just make sure that the process is unfolding as it's supposed to, but trust the people who are supposed to do the job to do the job, okay? That's what we're being told here. Now, in your fears card, well, first of all, let me go with your current environment. Your current environment is the Page of Wands. Okay, so now the Page of Wands, it generally indicates that you have people who are very gung-ho. They feel that they know how to fix things or how to do things around you, but it may be because they're a little bit naive about the situation, right? So in this situation, because you are still sort of initially in the planning phases here, you're going to want to be clear with people about your intentions, but keep it simple. So in other words, don't tell people what your plans are. No, don't tell people what your plans are, but tell people what you are doing. Okay, so if you feel as though you need time, time alone, or some self-reflection, or you need to seek out a certain experience or something like that, don't be afraid to tell them that, and don't be afraid to tell them that you're fine, but you just don't really want to talk about it or something like that, because this does suggest a sort of a feeling in your environment that everybody's kind of going off the cuff and doing their thing, and they may not take the time to perceive your behavior and the things that you say and the things that you do the way that you actually intended them, so it may cause some confusion. And I can see that in your fears, because in your fears you have your Seven of Wands, and a Seven of Wands means that there's like an initial period of success, like let's say, I always think of sort of Moses. So this character here in this card looks like a cute little Moses in a way, where, the Israelites were like wandering through the desert, and this figure comes up and takes the reins and says, well, I'll lead you, and I'm listening to my intuition and God and whatever it is, so I'll steer you the right way. And initially the people are on board and everything, but then they start to question whether or not you have the resolve or things like that. They start thinking, well, we've been out here for a really long time and we're still not any foreseeably closer to our destination, So this is in your fears. So this suggests that you have a fear of sort of needing to defend yourself somehow. And this could be because you have a new view or something like that you pretty much know that your family is not going to accept, or that somebody else isn't going to accept, but you're going to have to be around them anyway. And not only that, you take a pretty large role in their life. So you know that you're not going to be able to avoid this forever, so you're going to have to approach the situation. But again, keep in mind that it's really just your perspective. You don't really know how this person is going to react to this news or whatever you're telling them or whatever it is. Also, by the way, the Page of Wands, the environment, suggests that there's a lot of new news around you. You're perhaps becoming aware of a lot of things that you weren't aware of before. And that can also mean that, like, there's been periods of time in my life where I've sort of tuned out to politics and the media totally. And just every time I saw it, I just saw nothing really of value. I just saw people trying to incite divisiveness and all kinds of things like that. But then there were other times when my consciousness was like in a different state where I felt a little bit more expanded and mindful, that I saw some important lessons in what the people were saying. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily about just like listening to the thing that they want you to hear, because a lot of times that's a distraction, right? That's a figure that they put out. They dazzle you with this hand while they're doing something in the background with this one. And that's how politics usually goes these days. But once you get into a higher frame of mind where you can think in that sort of polar figure versus background way, then when you see somebody presenting this figure out here, you instantly start to look for the background, the thing that they're hiding, and then you can see it, and then once you get really good at that, it's hard to fool you, so your intuition is growing right now. Your communication with your subconscious is in a state where there are some bridges that are being built, okay? And so you're being asked to take some period of rest and solitude. Now, this is your overall message, and it's the Four of Swords, okay? In the original artwork, and you can see this girl is in like a cocoon, right? In the original artwork, there's the body of like a knight laying to rest inside a cathedral, and it looks very peaceful. Solitude, there's a sense of you've really done the major things that you need to do. You've made the big decisions that you needed to make. Now this is all just about detail. This is all just about managing your everyday life, work on your health, work on eating right, and those sorts of things, and take time to focus on living your life in a way that matches the vision of yourself in the future. Like, think of yourself where you want to be in a couple years or something like that. Don't think so much about like those goals and getting there. Visualize the person. Visualize yourself in that situation, and the characteristics and how your mood has changed. Literally imagine yourself. Imagine accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish, and then imagine how that will make you feel, and then try to mimic that feeling around you today. Try to find an activity that stimulates the same feeling that you believe you're going to have when you get there. And then take note of how that feeling satisfies you and all that. Just study. This is a time for self-reflection and healing, right? So this is a time for you to sort of self-indulge sometimes and take a little more than you maybe need, so in other words, if you're okay on money right now and things like that, don't pick up all the extra shifts at work. Let them take your time and be lazy at your house and get some sleep, get some rest. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on that's on the whole outside of your control, but things that you can still worry about if you really try. So don't try. That's the overall takeaway for this. Okay. Very cool reading. If you have any questions or concerns about it, let me know, and I will get back to you next week. Okay? Bye-bye.